You know what's strange? There's a specific kind of person who goes quiet the moment summer starts. Not sad, not dramatic, just quiet. While everyone else is planning trips and soaking up the sun like it's medicine, this person is doing the math on how many weeks are left until it's over. And if you've ever been that person, you've probably had the thought, what's wrong with me that I don't feel what everyone else seems to feel? You watch people talk about summer the way other people talk about falling in love. Something in their voice changes, and you nod along because you don't want to be the one person at the table who says the quiet part, which is that you'd trade all of it, the beach, the barbecues, the fireworks, for one overcast afternoon with nowhere to be. Nothing's wrong with you, but something interesting is going on. And it starts with the body, not the mind. Some people are simply wired to take in more from their environment. More light, more sound, more heat. Psychologists who study this call it sensory sensitivity, and it shows up in a surprisingly large chunk of the population, not as a flaw, just as a different setting. Think of it like two radios tuned to the same station, except one has the volume turned up much higher than the other. Both radios are working exactly as they should. They're just receiving the world at a different intensity. For someone with that setting, summer isn't relaxing. It's loud in a way that has nothing to do with actual noise. The heat presses in, the brightness doesn't let up. And a day that other people describe as gorgeous can quietly feel like standing too close to a speaker that never turns off. There's a reason so many of these same people gravitate toward late evenings, toward dim rooms, toward the specific relief of closing a curtain. It's not about avoiding life. It's about turning the volume back down to something the nervous system can actually process without static. That's the first piece. Here's the second, and it's sneakier. Summer doesn't just change the weather. It changes the social contract. Suddenly, everyone's calendar clears at once, and there's this unspoken agreement that free time should be filled. Group chats wake up. Plans multiply. Somebody suggests a trip, and within an hour, 10 people have said yes, and you're the 11th person still typing and deleting the same sentence, trying to figure out how to say no without it sounding like rejection. And if your instinct is to protect your energy instead of spend it, that instinct gets read as antisocial, even though it's really just self-awareness. You're not avoiding people. You're avoiding depletion. There's a real difference between not wanting to see anyone and knowing that seeing everyone, all at once, for 3 straight months, will leave you running on empty by August. Nobody explains that distinction to you growing up. You just learn it the hard way, usually after a summer that left you more exhausted than any exam period ever did. It shows up in small ways you don't always notice at first. You start declining things 2 weeks in advance, instead of the day of, because you've learned that future you needs the warning. You develop a quiet skill for the vague excuse, the one that doesn't quite explain anything, but also doesn't invite follow-up questions. You get very good at showing up for exactly 90 minutes and leaving while everyone else is still getting started, and you stop apologizing for it, mostly. Then there's the part almost nobody talks about, which is sleep. Longer daylight hours delay a chemical called melatonin, the one your brain uses to signal that it's time to wind down. More evening light means that signal arrives later. Multiply that across an entire summer, and a lot of people are quietly running a sleep deficit they never notice, because it doesn't feel like exhaustion. It feels like irritability, like restlessness, as forgetting things you'd normally remember. And because none of that looks like a sleep problem on the surface, you rarely trace it back to its actual cause. You just quietly start believing something's wrong with your personality instead of your circadian rhythm. There's something almost unfair about it. Winter gets blamed for making people tired, and everyone accepts that without question. Nobody questions why you'd want to sleep more in the dark and the cold. But summer, the season everyone insists is energizing, might actually be the one quietly running your battery down. And because it doesn't match the story we've all agreed to tell about sunshine, it goes unnoticed for years. And underneath the sensory stuff and the sleep stuff, there's something quieter. Identity. Summer has a personality, and it's loud, social, sun-facing. If that's not your personality, if you'd rather be somewhere cool and dim with your own thoughts than somewhere bright and crowded, summer becomes a season of feeling slightly out of place in a world that assumes everyone wants the same thing. Humans measure normal against what they see around them. When the reflection doesn't match, something in you quietly starts to wonder if you're the one who's broken. You're not. You're just outnumbered for a few months a year. It's the strange experience of watching an entire culture organize itself around a preference you don't share, and slowly internalizing that as a personal defect instead of what it actually is, which is a mismatch, not a malfunction. This tends to show up in relationships too, in ways that are easy to misread. Maybe a partner keeps inviting you to things you keep declining, and neither of you quite knows how to name what's happening. It's not that you don't want to be near them, it's that closeness, for you, doesn't require constant activity, and that difference can quietly feel like rejection to someone who experiences love as motion, as plans, as shared momentum. Nobody's wrong here. You're just running on different operating systems, and summer is the season that exposes the gap most clearly. Sometimes it runs even deeper than personality. Seasons hold memory. Maybe summer once meant losing the structure that school gave your days. Maybe something painful happened in July. Once. A long time ago. Maybe the heat in a childhood home meant tension, not comfort. The brain doesn't always separate then from now, when the sensory details match closely enough. The smell of sunscreen, the exact color of 5 o'clock light, the specific hum of a fan in an overheated room. These things can quietly reopen a door you didn't even know was still unlocked, without asking permission first. So if summer arrives and you feel a resistance you can't quite name, it's worth considering that you might not just be reacting to this summer. You might be reacting to an old one your body remembers even after your mind has moved on. None of this makes you difficult, or ungrateful, or broken. People who prefer quieter, cooler, slower environments often show something researchers describe as a deeper inner world. Not because they're hiding from life, but because they've spent real time cultivating a mind that doesn't need constant stimulation to feel okay. That's not a consolation prize. That's a genuine skill, one a lot of people spend years trying to build in therapy. There's a quiet kind of richness in a mind that's comfortable with itself, in not needing the noise, the crowd, the constant motion, to feel like something is happening. Something is happening. It's just happening on the inside, where nobody else can see it. What's strange is how rarely someone gets to just dislike summer without a correction attached. A better sunscreen, a different attitude, as if the problem was ever the sun, and not the assumption that everyone experiences it the same way. So people who feel this quietly learn to perform an enthusiasm they don't actually feel, which is its own kind of tiredness, stacked right on top of everything else. You smile at the barbecue. You say, "Yeah, it's been a good summer," at the right moments. And somewhere underneath that performance, a much quieter, much more honest version of you is counting the days until October. It's exhausting in a way that's hard to explain to someone who's never had to do it. Managing your own real feelings is one job. Managing everyone else's comfort with your real feelings is a second, invisible job layered right on top, and nobody ever clocks you in for it. Here's the thing worth sitting with before autumn arrives and rescues you again. The retreating, the carefully rationed plans, the small wave of relief when a gray day shows up out of nowhere. That's not failure. That might be the clearest form of self-knowledge a person can have. Knowing exactly what costs you something and choosing to protect yourself from it anyway is something a lot of people never quite figure out. Not in their 20s, not in their 40s, sometimes not ever. And if you've made it this far, watching this instead of scrolling past it, there's a decent chance some part of this already felt familiar before I even said it. That recognition is worth paying attention to. Maybe you were never the one who didn't get it. Maybe you were just the one who was paying attention the whole time.